What's up, guys? Ricky here. Do you love Most Valuable Podcasts? And are you like myself where things that you like, you just have to let people know because they've got to be on your t-shirt at all times? If you do, you're in luck because we got Most Valuable Podcast t-shirts. You've probably seen myself, Dave, Mark, Sean, Brandon. You might have seen us wearing these t-shirts in videos. The good thing is now you can get your hands on one too. How do you do so? First off, send us an email, mostvaluablepodcast@gmail.com. Give us your name, your size, your address. We will then send you an invoice through Square. That's how you'll pay for it, $22 per shirt. And then after we get the money, we will send you a great Most Valuable Podcast t-shirt for you to wear so you can tell everybody that you love listening to Most Valuable Podcast. So go check it out. The directions are also in the description. What are you waiting for? We got the shirts just for you. But Brandon, let's move on to our top five, or as some would say, our cream of the crop here on our big board. And as the great Macho Man Randy Savage would say in wrestling, the cream always rises to the top. Go ahead, give us your top five through 1.
All right.
Brandon's like, I wasn't expecting a Macho Man Randy Savage impression.
No, I was not. Number 5, I've got Bradley Chubb, defensive end from NC State. Number 4, Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back from Alabama. At number 3, Josh Rosen, quarterback from UCLA. At number 2, Sam Darnold, quarterback from USC. And at number 1, running back from the Penn State, Saquon Barkley.
I'll be completely honest. We'll go straight into mine. Not many. There's only one difference. The only difference, I have Minkah Fitzpatrick at 5. I have Bradley Chubb at 4. So I've got Fitzpatrick, defensive back, Alabama. Chubb, defensive end, NC State. Top 3 the same. Rosen, quarterback, UCLA. Darnold, QB from Southern Cal. Barkley, running back from Penn State. I want to start with this quarterback discussion. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. I will be completely honest with you, Brandon. I told you this on the phone as you called me before we came in to record. I am shocked that you have Rosen under Darnold. Like, for myself, I always was favoring Darnold over Rosen. I thought you would be the guy to favor Rosen over Darnold.
I want to know why. I want to know why you think that.
I feel like in our conversations, like when we've talked about Rosen, have talked about Darnold, I've just gotten this vibe that you're a Rosen. Like, if we had to pick and it was like black and white, that you'd be a Rosen guy over a Darnold guy. Just from our conversations and speaking about Rosen and Darnold. But tell me why you have Rosen over Darnold. Because obviously I know why I have Rosen over. Why I have Darnold over Rosen. That's what I meant to say.
So, for Sam Darnold, after last year, we thought he was the second coming of Christ and that he was going to be just absolutely lights out.
You're telling me he's not?
Oh, surprise.
Newsflash.
But, I mean, he had a great game in the Rose Bowl last year against Penn State, actually, and then he came into this season, lots of expectations, very high expectations, and in the first couple of games, it was like, oh my gosh, this guy's human. He's not the next Tom Brady, But 9 picks in his first 6 games, 3 picks over his last 7, 14 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. So what does that tell me? First of all, is that okay? You have a slow start, you have a strong finish, you can make adjustments. You're able to make adjustments within the season to get better. That's first, number 1 overall. And the competition got better as the season went on. I think that's also a big thing. For Sam Darnold, it's his size, certainly his ability, his arm strength, his playmaking ability to be able to, we talk about it, and we've talked about it a number of times tonight, it's being able to extend the play. Extend the play. That's what Sam Darnold's able to do with his arm, with his legs. One of the things that I would say, though, with his legs, his ball security when he's...
Keep that ball in.
Yeah, ball security when he's trying to run. That would be number one. But ball security in general, that would be one of my weaknesses for him, is that he's got to be better at ball security. I mean, if you remember the Colorado game, which some people may, especially USC fans, could not secure that football. So I think that's definitely number one on the weakness side. But to me, there's really not a whole lot of weaknesses. There's a lot of, wow, look at what he can do for you. And he's a special talent. He's a very, very special talent. And Sam Darnold, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it. I mean, going all the way back to when Max Brown was benched and Sam Darnold was inserted into the starting lineup as the starting quarterback after the Alabama game, and everything just seemed to go right for Sam Darnold. He just seemed to be a true leader, a guy who was able to lead a team, and guys got better around him, and he made guys better, and he was able to, play with Juju Smith-Schuster, and now Juju's in the NFL trying to find his bike, and
I thought he did find his bike.
He finally did, but for a while he was looking for it. But Darnold is that type of guy who's going to make everybody around him better. And when you do that, you remind me of very good quarterbacks in the NFL, because the quarterbacks in the NFL, what do? They make the guys around them that much better.
You know what made me smile when you brought up the name Max Brown? A year ago, when we were talking 2016 season, I still remember, and I had to look them up for the exact titles, we had 2 topics on Max Brown. One of them is Max Brown, the quarterback to bring USC back to the top. Yeah. It's Sam Darnold. Number 2
but here's the thing, though.
Was USC Alabama going to be Max Brown's coming out party? It was not. It was not his coming out party.
But here's the thing, is that, believe it or not, in a maybe non-technical way, were we right? Max Brown was the way to the top, because his failure and his benching
led to
Sam Darnold. So again, we're not wrong.
Yeah,
we're not wrong. We're technically or non-technically not wrong.
His benching led to football Jesus, is what you're talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. But with these guys, I feel like, for me, I look at the stats. Yeah, they're obviously a little different, but really they're ballpark the same. You look at these two statistically, they're both in the same ballpark. The thing that I think of between these two that makes it easy, and this is the reason why I have Darnold over Rosen also, is Darnold has the higher ceiling, Rosen has the higher floor. If you're an NFL team and you're thinking about just this next upcoming year, if you're saying, Ricky, the apocalypse happens after the next Super Bowl, you only get 1 year with either of these quarterbacks, I will pick Josh Rosen all day, every day. But if you're saying to me, Ricky, the apocalypse ain't going to happen, nothing's going to happen, you're going to have this guy for as many years as you want, I'll take Sam Darnold because of where his ceiling is. His ceiling and his potential are a lot higher than a Josh Rosen. That's why I would take Darnold. Now, am I in the camp that Darnold should probably stay in school? Yes, I am. It would help him, and then he wouldn't have to play for the Cleveland Browns. That's what I'm thinking. But if he did come out, to me, he'd be the top quarterback easily over Josh Rosen. And that's not a knock at Josh Rosen whatsoever. It's just, hey, Josh Rosen's here, Darnold's here, but by the end of their career, they could be here. And Darnold could be above Rosen when they get to the end of it.
Yeah, and I think that when you bring up Josh Rosen to now go into him, again, he's a physical talent with a strong arm. He can pretty much make any throw you need him to make with his arm. I mean, all we have to do, I think, is go back to the first game of the season this past year against Texas A&M and what he was able to do. Certainly didn't start off well in that game, but
comeback.
But he came back, he got things together, he rallied the troops, and they came back and they beat Texas A&M. So there's two things in that. One, is he able to come back and is he able to make some really, really good throws? Oh, yeah. I almost said yuck. Oh, heck yes, he is. Yuck. Yuck, he is. Heck yes.
Heck yes is now yuck.
Yuck. So
we're going to make shirts that just say yuck with an exclamation point.
But I think that's part of the point. Is he make the throws that he needs to make. but also he sometimes isn't as accurate as you would like him to be. Accuracy has at times been a thing that's kind of gotten away from him. But then, again, my biggest thing is he had an injury, kept him out for a good part of a season last year. And then, for the most part, though, came back, bounced back, was pretty healthy this entire season. I think had an injury in one of his last games here, but this is a guy who bounced back from that injury rather quickly and rather well to have a pretty good season this year with UCLA in terms of himself, you know, not necessarily for the team. Their best season, UCLA's best season, by the way, 8-5. 8-5 with him, with Rosen there. With Rosen there, 8-5 season under Jim Mora, the former Jim Mora, who's no longer their coach.
Well, let's move on away from the quarterbacks a little bit. I'll let you pick which one we mentioned first. I want to move into the two defensive players we got here. We got Minkah Fitzpatrick. I had him at 5. You have him at 4. Bradley Chubb. I had him at 4. You had him at 5. Really close here on the big board. Which one do you want to talk about first?
So here, I'll take Minkah, and then I'll let you take Chubb.
Works for me. For me.
So Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, you talk about a.
Do you only pick him because he's the Alabama guy and you like Alabama?
Actually, yes. But
actually, I'm going to cut you off really quick. Did you see what Shannon Sharp had today on Uninterrupted?
No.
On the desk, he had a thing of Tide with a toilet paper roll on top of it. And he said, Skip, roll Tide. Roll Tide.
It's pretty funny.
I had
very clever.
I thought that you would get a kick out of that. But Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Minkah Fitzpatrick, one of the things that I think is easily noticeable is that when Minkah Fitzpatrick is not on the field, you know he's not on the field. And the reason being is because Alabama's defense is not as tough. It's not as physical. So many of those defensive plays, they run through Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, he is quick. He is big. He is a guy who is physical. I mean, I can't say that enough. He is just really, really good at his position. And again, with as good of a defense as Alabama is, I mean, let's just say it. They're one of, if not the best defense in the country when healthy. And you take one guy away, you should still be able to, okay, we're good, we're fine. Yeah, they're good, they're fine, but you know, like I said, when Minkah Fitzpatrick is not on that field, you can tell. You can tell.
The one thing I will say about Minkah before I talk about Bradley Chubb is the thing I love most about him is his versatility. Can play either cornerback or either safety, and a guy that I compare him to, mainly because we had the same discussion about him last year, is I almost think about a Jalen Ramsey, to where it's like he is a guy that can play either safety or cornerback, and whichever one you put him at, you're going to love having him on the field. But Bradley Chubb is a guy to me where I agree with Mel Kiper when he says he's not going to be on the level of Myles Garrett, and we're not going to be talking about Bradley Chubb as a number 1 pick. Duh, we've got 2 great quarterbacks in this draft. They both come out. But if you look at their numbers, Bradley Chubb's numbers this year are slightly better than the number 1 pick in the draft last year, and that pass rusher went number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns. This is a guy has power and speed on the outside, and guess what? We have not heard a wink of when it comes to this pass rusher. The word starts with an I, Brandon, ends with a Y. Injury. Have not talked about many injury with Bradley Chubb, and that is key. No Arden Key situation here. No Connor Williams situation here. I know Connor Williams is the offensive tackle, but injury we talked about today. Bradley Chubb to me. I know that with us, there might be people that say me and you both have him too high. I don't think we have him high enough almost. I think that if Darnold and Rosen aren't as on a pedestal as they are, and especially in my mind and just overall, I told you coming in, I almost put Bradley Chubb at number 3. I almost put him splitting up the 2 quarterbacks because that's how dominant I think he can be in the right system in the NFL. He's a guy that can get off the edge quick, can get off the edge powerfully, and he's a guy that I know against Boston College he had a big one, but he's a guy that could become a strip sack artist in the NFL. Could be huge for whatever team in the top 5 wants him.
I wanted to go back to Minkah Fitzpatrick for a minute.
Go ahead.
And I wanted to say that what I think is another positive with him is that, he isn't a guy who's just, now been contributing in his senior year, things like that. He's a guy who's been there with Alabama since he was a freshman, and he's been a guy who's been making plays for this Alabama defense since he was a freshman. So I think that that's really good because he's got that experience. He's had that under his belt, and he's grown with that Alabama defense. Now, another thing with Minkah Fitzpatrick that people could possibly see as a negative is that Alabama doesn't usually make him play a lot of one-on-one defense. They don't put him on a, Revis Island and say, okay, go one-on-one with this team's top wide receiver. He really hasn't had to do that. So is that something that NFL teams will look at and go, well, he's been good, but he can't be our top guy because he's not been able to do that. And will he be able to make that transition fairly seamlessly? That's a question, but I don't think it's one that is going to take long to be answered because I think that just with his talent, you talked about the versatility with him where he's able to play multiple positions on that defensive side of the football. Going one-on-one in defensive coverage, I don't think would shake the guy at all.
Well, and the last thing I want to move into, the number 1 on our big board, unanimously between the two, Saquon Barkley, which is funny because today, before we started recording the podcast, Saquon Barkley, not a Heisman candidate. How can he not be a Heisman candidate, but he's number 1 on our big board?
Well, I think that it's simple.
Doesn't play quarterback?
No, I'm answering this. No, because Bryce Love made it. I'm answering this question, your question, with not a straight answer. You have Lamar Jackson at low on your big board. I don't even have him on mine. He's a Heisman finalist.
I will be honest. I am a Lamar Jackson lover. I am fallen in love with Lamar Jackson ever since last year. I didn't even think he was going to be a Heisman finalist this year.
So I had the bold prediction early on, before the season started, preseason, and my bold prediction was that when we were talking about actually who we talking about who we thought would be the Heisman.
Yep, blah, blah, blah. We did have a Heisman discussion, and
I said my bold prediction would be that Lamar Jackson would be nowhere near the discussion. Joke's on me, he is, but. How is it that Saquon Barkley's not in it? I think because his team started to fall off
after those back-to-back losses.
They went away. The loss to Michigan State was tough. The loss to Ohio State was worse, and he wasn't putting up the same type of numbers. And now let me tell you, folks, is that obviously. Whoever is picking, the group that's picking the Heisman finalists, they stay up to watch the Pac-12 games.
Yeah,
because
Stanford
Bryce Love got in there, but he deserved to be. He certainly deserved to be. And it was obviously, you'll know this when you're watching this video, that it was Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Love. Yeah. I think they all probably deserve to be there based on their stats. You can't put, it's just like the playoff. There's probably about 6 guys who really deserve to be there, but you have 3 spots for it. Just like there's probably 8 teams who could be there, and you have 4.
Well, let me ask you this. Why'd you put Saquon at number 1?
Put Saquon at number 1 because I think overall, all around, he's the best player. He is the best player overall. He can be a running back, and he's got great vision. He's got great speed. And then he can line up as a wide receiver. And then he can be a kick returner. And then, hell, he can throw the freaking football. The guy,
just call him Booby Miles.
The guy can do it all. And he can do it all successfully. That's why I think that you talk about an all-around athlete. That's what Saquon Barkley is. And he's going to bring that to you. He's going to bring that to any team that goes and gets him. They can line him up at so many different positions. It's incredible. He's successful out of all of them. And he catches passes out of the backfield. That's important. He could be, here we go again, trying to compare But like a successful when he was healthy. I mean, certainly looking at last season, Melvin Gordon. So Melvin Gordon in terms of the pass catching and running ability, Melvin Gordon very good at that. And he's one of the younger guys who's good at that. He catches a ton of passes out of the backfield. Le'Veon Bell, he's a guy who you can line him up all over the field, and he is going to get it done for you. I think they've even had him throw some passes before, but it has been just a great run for Saquon Barkley. Talk about a guy who's gotten better each and every year. Saquon Barkley has gotten better each and every year.
You know what I find absolutely hilarious? And this is off the topic of Saquon really quick.
What's that?
Before I left my house for the podcast today, I was like, you know what? Brandon and I aren't going to take too long. I don't need my laptop charger. Guess what just happened to my laptop?
It died.
It is now dead. So I am laptopless. But the thing I was going to say about Saquon Barkley, and I was going to look at numbers to compare them, but throwing that out the window, I'm just going to say what I was going to say before. I wouldn't be surprised if Saquon Barkley this year in the draft has a very Adrian Peterson-like road to where it's like, you know what? Is he number one on the big boards? Yeah. But did he end up being like the 7th pick in the draft? Yeah, he did. And that's only because I wonder how the running back position is going to be weighed early in this draft. Obviously, we've been seeing more and more towards when you have two quarterbacks like you do in Darnold and Rosen, if they come out, and then if you have the pass rushers also, that if they rise, I wonder if he slides back a bit order-wise, even though he's the best player in college college football. I almost said basketball. College football. To me, on my end, what's the one thing, if you've noticed, two of the guys had it. They were ranked higher on mine than yours. Harold Landry and Minkah Fitzpatrick both had versatility. I am a guy that I love versatility in my players, and that's what Saquon Barkley is. Can run the ball, can catch the ball, even though I feel like, and I got a little bit of flack for this in talking about Saquon in the past, he can catch the ball, but he's not an amazing pass catcher. He needs to work on that. There are things he needs to work on, and that is one of them. But is he still the best player in college football? Would he be taking needs out of it, taking team fit out of it? If I'm just drafting, yes, he's my number one. The only one that I almost put above him was the guy I had at number 2 in Sam Darnold. Those are the only two players that I would think to put in that number 1 spot. And I wonder where he's going to fall, because I think that he'll be a top 10 pick, but I wouldn't be surprised if Saquon falls out of the top 5 because he's a running back and the top 5 teams don't value that.
Well, I can tell you, we want to keep teams pretty much out of it and stuff like that, but I can tell you of the top 5 teams, I know that there's at least one in there that definitely needs a running back. And there's one in there that definitely needs a lot of help at a lot of different positions, and a guy that can help you at running back.
Can I guess without saying their name?
Sure.
Did they just fire their head coach?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. See, we're thinking on the same wavelength. They just fired their head coach and their GM, because that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants are so... the Giants are, when it comes down to it, so pitiful at the running back position, and they have not had a good running back since freaking Tiki Barber. I mean, it's been forever since the Giants had a legitimate threat at the running back position. And Saquon Barkley is a guy who, again, gives you that versatility, and he's going to be, I think, good at the running back position. But again, you can put him in the slot for wide receiver. Not that you're going to him all the time, but he gives you that extra weapon.
Yeah.
Another guy that they have to cover to hopefully then open up Odell Beckham Jr. or Sterling Shepard or whoever it might be. But that's what Saquon Barkley is able to bring to any team.
I'm going to wrap up the podcast right here. Before I do, we've got extended housekeeping here at the end. Mock draft style and draft style. Our next big board is going to be, our next one is February 5th for the NFL. That'll be Brandon and I's next big board. Our first mock draft is actually next week on the Onside Kick. So Mark and I, we have the big board this week. You guys get to digest that. Next week's our first mock draft of the season. The next actual big board for me and you between basketball and football, because we double dip here on the Primetime Podcast, I want to say that one is at the end of January. So around the January 30th date, right around the beginning of conference play. So actually, no, beginning of January will be like January 16th will be our first big board for college basketball. That's our next one. And then February will be football. We're entering. This is the beginning. I'm dubbing it. This is the beginning of draft season here on Most Valuable Podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're all the way with us, all the way through it. Now the actual housekeeping. MVP t-shirts. You can buy those. They down below in the description how you can do that. We also have patreon.com. You love what we were doing today. Throw us a buck or two. You get a podcast for doing so. And for $10, you can actually join a podcast. You want to talk draft stuff with us? Come on the podcast. Be a Patreon supporter like Christian, Patrick, and Jake do every single month. And then finally, if you're on YouTube, or if you're on iTunes, have an iTunes account, please give us that 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And if you could do it for us, the Onside Kick, the Fast Break, the Rick and Johnny podcast, that would be really cool. I want to thank Brandon, our first big board. It's all said and done. It was here. Now it is gone. Now they get to digest it and tell us what they think down below in the description. I want to thank you guys for either watching on YouTube and or listening on all podcast services around the globe. Thank you guys for listening, but as always, have a good day, everybody.